One of the core principles has been simplicity since day one. It's why we built that first shirt of having something that was overcomplicated that took away from enjoying those moments outside. And so as we've grown, gotten bigger, had bigger, larger scale productions, one thing for me is all our brand and content creative is just being purposeful of, we can't go do 1,000 things on these big shoots. We have to be, clear about what the goal is and make sure people are out there having a really good time, because in any industry, especially ours, people can suss out when you're pretending to be someone you're not. And we want to make sure that we remain true to that. But I do miss those early days of only having a handful of shirts and saying like, look, we only have 4 or 5 products. Let's just go shoot them versus 200 that you have to get, all shot for a season. But trying to just chunk it out and do the thing that you went out to do in the beginning and do it really well is still a focus today.
Tanner Sutton, welcome to the Marketing Factor podcast. I'm very excited to have you on. You and I have never met, but I follow you on Instagram and I believe you follow me. And I guess I know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm really excited to have you here. Tell me a little bit about kind of what you do, what your business is, and what your background is.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So I'm originally from Montana and been down in Charleston for the past 14 years. And I founded a brand called Fly in 2012. And we're an outdoor apparel company and have found our little niche in comfortable gear made out of bamboo and sun protection and all that good stuff. And beyond that, I've got a great wife and 2 young daughters, 3 and 6.
Awesome. So are you the CEO of Fly?
I am. I don't know what you call me these days, but I'm the founder and one of the co-owners. So we've all we're not big into titles at Fly, but I coined myself as the guy with the idea here like 13 years ago and surrounded myself with some smart people.
Nice. So what was the idea for Fly?
Yeah. So I grew up as I said, in Montana, and I was in a family clothing business, and so my folks had a niche where they did custom artwork for resorts and national parks. And so I grew up cutting my teeth of every job imaginable in the apparel world. And then throughout college, my life was owned by sports growing up. And so when I had a little breather in college, I fell in love with fly fishing. It had always been a pastime of the family, and eventually became a guide. I was living in Helena, Montana, going to a small school there and guided for my last couple summers of college and shortly after. And it really was a light bulb moment for me of 2 worlds colliding, of growing up in this family clothing business and then rowing people down the Missouri River at that point, and loved what I did, loved catching fish, loved having clients and having really great days. But the one thing that was holding me back was, in my opinion, the shirt on my back. I think I was probably 25 years old wearing some kind of overbuilt synthetic shirt. And at the end of every day, I'd be sticky and sweaty and uncomfortable. And that was the original idea of kind of solving a personal problem for me, of trying to build something that performed well in the water, but was really comfortable and simply designed. So that's where it all came from.
Nice. And so that was the bamboo shirt?
That was, yeah. So, I mean, a lot happened between the days of guiding and launching the business. But I shortly after deciding to get out of the snow, my folks retired in Hilton Head, and I moved to Charleston, and felt like that was the closest town that wasn't a retirement community, and didn't know anyone when I moved here, and had a sales gig selling some other clothing lines for like corporate logo wear. But spent about 18 months doing R&D and just knew that the goal was to have something that felt like that old t-shirt in the back of your closet, but still performed well while you're out doing whatever you love outside. So eventually came across bamboo and play with it a bunch of different fabric blends, and was able to leverage some of my folks' manufacturing contacts overseas to build our first long sleeve shirt, which was a 70-30 viscose from bamboo poly blend, which is still our lightweight long sleeve, one of our best sellers today.
Was anyone doing bamboo shirts in the fishing industry then?
No, not that I was aware of. There was some, a little bit in some like fitness, active wear, but really bamboo by itself, like a lot of people didn't even know, still don't know that you can make clothing out of it. People think of it as bed sheets, because 100% bamboo is like so soft, silky, lightweight. It doesn't have a lot of body or hold to it. So that's why playing with all different types of fabric blends was really key in the early stages of build something super comfortable and just simple design that I just didn't want a lot of extra bells and whistles to distract you from whatever you want to do, being on the water or surfing or whatever you like to do outside.
So you started it with another founder, or how did you kind of actually start the business?
Yeah, I was actually living with a fishing guide in Mount Pleasant at the time. I met him through the fishing community and started on my own in 2012. And I did the minimum order and brought in 3,000 shirts and stored them in our garage at a house in Mount Pleasant, and realized I needed to go sell them. So it was just me at that point. And so the only industry I knew was fly fishing. And so I hit, for that first year, I hit tons of consumer fly fishing shows and was slinging them with a small little, banner I made at a local sign shop at these fly fishing shows, just to get market appetite and understand if this was going to work or not. I kind of had one shot at it. And so luckily the first year was able to pick up a handful of brick and mortar fly shops around the country. And then about a year and a half or 2 years into it, my sister and her husband joined me. They were both in product marketing at Nike for about 10 years. And I think I had them down to Charleston, and we had a few game changers at home team and somehow convinced them to join me as partners. So they quit their jobs on the same day and joined me here in late 2013.
Yeah, you must have had quite a few game changers if you were able to convince both of them to
they
migrate
were ready to start
over.
a family. They were kind of sick of the corporate grind, and my sister and I grew up in a family business. So my parents were bootstrapped. We wanted to do the same thing, and knew what we were signing up for, I guess, of all the grinding of having a partner, but knowing, putting that aside and still being a family too. So it was both sides agreeing and nodding, knowing that there was going to be something cool on the other side of it if it worked out.
So what did they bring? So you said their backgrounds in product marketing, or product development. What kind of what did adding them to the team enable you guys to do?
The biggest component was, since I was the first guy here, I naturally fell into sales, and so they allowed me to go hit the road and try to sell as many of these shirts. I think I had, by the time they joined, I think we had a long sleeve, a hoodie, a couple short sleeves, and a fleece and some graphic items. And so they really helped build out the product line to the point where it felt more like an outdoor brand than just that niche fly fishing brand. And then my sister was in Nike Digital for her last few years there. So she helped bring some expertise growing the e-commerce side of the business. But in those days, it was the three of us shoved into a tiny office, and we had one full-time employee that was pulling orders all day, and we all wore a million hats. So, but they definitely helped turn it into a real business, more so than the original just guy with an idea selling t-shirts out of the back of his truck in the first couple of years.
Where did you guys kind of find success? Like when was that kind of, oh wow, this is really taking off?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to flash back. I think when we had a couple hundred retailers around the country, and we were transitioning from just the mom and pop fly shops around the country into the core outdoor shorts. Core outdoor shops. Think of like the Half Moon Outfitters around the country that bring in a lot of different people that like to do a lot of different things outside, and started getting some traction with outdoor stores that could drive volume. And we didn't have much budget for marketing, anything like that. But fortunately for us, that being in physical retail stores, people shop with their hands so much. So like that really soft hand feeling when someone feels our shirts, it would stop them in their tracks, and they'd be like, what is this? Oh, you can make clothing out of bamboo. And it was just a cool in-person way of spreading the brand without a lot of marketing dollars behind it. So once we had a couple hundred of those and started seeing some growth and reorders around the country, it felt like there's something real here.
So did you guys have an e-commerce site at that point?
We did, yeah, but we weren't really we weren't pushing it too hard, or didn't really know what we were doing in terms of platform and marketing for the first few years, since we were just trying to get the business off the ground. But it was well timed in coming into like the 2016, 17, 18 timeframe, when Facebook and Meta advertising was really a lot easier than it is now. So my sister headed that up and and started scaling that. And that's where we saw some really nice growth outside of physical retail stores.
So what were you guys doing there kind of to start? I mean, you say that Facebook advertising was easier then. It was obviously cheaper. There wasn't as much competition. Creative obviously mattered, but not as much as it does now. There obviously weren't as many kind of competitors to what you guys were doing. So it was easier to maybe find that audience. Did it just immediately kind of you turned the ads on yourselves and it just took off? And were you on Shopify too?
I think originally we were on Magento, and then we switched to Shopify shortly after, and then Shopify Plus. But no, it definitely wasn't as easy as just turning the ads on and people coming to us. I mean, we had to we went through a handful of doing it ourselves, going to seminars, leadership groups, and just trying to ultimately always came back to, we've got to learn this on our own, because we can't trust someone with our business that, we've got to make sure that we truly do understand how it all works. And the beauty of having a Charleston brand and an outdoor brand based here is, we would use all of the content down here in the Low Country of just taking a bunch of friends, not real models, just friends, and getting out in the water. And we'd bring a 12-pack of beer and some snacks and just go shoot for a full day. And the content always came out really authentic, and we've held on to that for a really long time, to making sure that we use real people and capture those real moments, and then playing with ad copy of, why you should buy this shirt and enjoy all that we have to offer in really cool, wild places. And the waterways of Charleston were a great focal point for that as a brand that was advertising in the Southeast at that point.
So visually, you were more. It was more about telling the story visually for you guys through using Charleston as the backdrop, showing this lifestyle, creating kind of I almost think of like Patagonia as kind of the they're the preeminent of this type of advertising. I remember their early catalogs and stuff with throwing the baby over the rocks and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you remember that. I remember that ad that I'm talking about. Oh yeah. And I always think that they had great storytelling, right? It within their, you would get those catalogs and there would be like an entire article in there, which was awesome. But to me, what was so compelling was just the actual visuals. And I always thought that was like, if I was going to start an outdoor brand, lead with the visuals. The storytelling comes naturally through the visuals.
I totally agree with that. And a picture tells 1,000 words, but we, and back to Patagonia is just the gold standard, I think, of any outdoor brand of just, they've done it so right and maintained true to themselves. And so they're always someone we looked up to and still do. But yeah, through photo and video and just finding these people as we got immersed into the Charleston outdoor scene, just finding people that were passionate about what they did. And you don't, they don't really realize the camera's on them a couple hours in, and whether it's a fishing guide or someone who's just out there paddling or surfing and following them a day in the life. And we're fortunate to have gear that matched their lifestyle, what their needs were. So it was a great way to kickstart that digital advertising space of what it means to have an outdoor brand and be authentic and stay true to yourself. So yeah, it was a lot of learnings in the early days, and as we've grown and refined, we definitely hold on to those early days and want to make sure that we still practice what we preach of getting outside and enjoying it here.
Well, I was going to say, do you yearn for those earlier days where it was just like, hey, let's just grab a 12-pack of beer, go out with a fishing guide, get our friend who shoots photos and video to do this stuff. And now, as you've evolved into Free Fly 2024, it seems like a much more high fidelity kind of production is involved in everything. But as I'm seeing in kind of the space, people are still kind of want that authentic, user generated content where it feels like it's shot with an iPhone, your friend shot it and stuff like that. So it's almost like you created that blueprint. You're transitioning to this more, this glossier look, but I still feel like there's room for incorporating just like the lifestyle in it.
For sure. Yeah. I think, one of the core principles has been simplicity since day one. It's why we built that first shirt of having something that was overcomplicated that took away from enjoying those moments outside. And so as we've grown, gotten bigger, had bigger, larger scale productions, one thing for me is I head up all our brand and content creative is just being purposeful of we can't go do 1,000 things on these big shoots. We have to be, clear about what the goal is and make sure people are out there having a really good time. Because, in any industry, especially ours, people can suss out when you're pretending to be someone you're not. And we want to make sure that we remain true to that. But I do miss those early days of only having a handful of shirts and saying like, look, we only have 4 or 5 products. Let's just go shoot them versus, 200 that you have to get, all shot for a season. But trying to just chunk it out and do the thing that you went out to do in the beginning and do it really well is still a focus today.
So I would imagine, you're letting the customer a little bit kind of drive where your product development goes, and not necessarily the other way around. But there is probably, you want to be ahead of the game against your competitors, kind of ensuring that you guys are staying fresh, that you're offering new products each season and not just new colorways and things like that. How do you kind of determine what the next category of product and merchandise is that you're going to launch?
Yeah, it's a good question and something we talk about a lot in the office. But back to being consumer led and consumer focused, we do a lot of consumer groups and we do a lot of focus groups and surveys and try to pinpoint our best customers of what I want to know everything about your entire life. You like to fish, but what else do you like to do? And what other products can we make for those other activities that you like to do outside of your typical day to day that you hold as I am a fisherman or I am a surfer. What else? And how can we provide more comfort to your lifestyle? So that's a really big part of it. Obviously, there's a lot of data out there of where you can see some opportunities. We've just recently started dabbling into surf, and part of that was more a lot of customers were coming to us saying they love to surf, and we weren't really making a lot of products for it. And part of it was the surf industry is going through a big change right now with a lot of the heritage brands getting bought up by a large company that if you walk into a lot of surf shops today versus 10 years ago, you see much different brands there that are winning at surf just because there's newness, freshness, and I think people are looking for something new and different. And so it's a variety of those things, but keeping the customer at the forefront's always been the biggest thing for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a surfer and I'm always looking just, personally for when I'm shopping for board shorts or whatever, I'm not necessarily going and looking for, Billabong shorts or something like that. I'm trying to discover new brands, seeing what, my favorite surfers are wearing and stuff like that. And I love that you guys have introduced surf in there. And I also think it's very cool how you've kind of embraced this ambassador approach to bringing athletes onto the team. Did you have that for the fishing side as well, or is that something new that's just for surf?
I'd say it was a casual program. It wasn't very formal, and just in the last 18 to 24 months, we've gotten more serious about both fish, surf, and just well-rounded outdoor athletes, ambassadors of trying to make sure that we partner with the right people that are authenticators in their space, and they validate us entering the market, like surf, for example. Of we signed Mark Healy last year. It's just been really cool getting to know a guy like that one of the best big wave surfers all time. But we look for people that have this well-roundedness to them, that they're not just one thing. They're not just a surfer. He likes to spearfish too. He's a dad and all these different things. And that resonates really well with our customers. And it's great for, product testing and understanding what the needs are from a level to the, most hardcore athlete all the way down to the everyday Joe weekend warrior. But if it passes the test of someone like that, then feels like that's a right time to introduce a product for that space. But no, it's been fun building the roster and personally getting to know a lot of the folks like Mark and Evan Geiselman has been a good friend of ours that, he's amazing, top level surfer, but I love to golf, and he's like a scratch golfer. And so we went golfing at Surf Expo this year. And so just finding these really cool personalities that match our brand ethos has been a fun challenge that we continue to build that roster out this year as well.
Well, he fits too because he's a great fisherman as well. I mean, I follow him, and he seems like he does a lot of saltwater fishing too, which obviously fits with the brand. And to me, the Mark Healy connection, when you guys signed him, I was like, wow, that totally makes sense. And being a Healy fan, I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to buy some Free Fly now. So how do you I guess for business owners out there who are trying to determine, okay, who are my ambassadors? Who's gonna kind of lead the way and make an impact for my brand? How do you determine kind of the return on investment for something like that? Because I would imagine that it's these are top level athletes, and you're paying them probably their market rate. What do you kind of hope to get out of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the starting place that was really helpful for us is looking in the mirror first and really trying to define what those brand values that you as a brand want to see and hear from yourself, number one, and then all the people that you surround yourselves with that truly match your customers and the lifestyle and everything that you're trying to promote as a brand. And so for us, our brand is centered around water. We have like these buckets of in, on, around the water, and we try to partner with people that not only love any kind of water activities, but also things like, humility and simplicity and not taking yourself too seriously. And I always joke that like we're just selling t-shirts when things get really stressful. I mean, it's as busy as things can get. It's a really cool industry to be in. So as we look for the people that are a reflection of us as a brand and truly go get to know them and build these personal relationships, if they're the dollars aside, if they feel like a really, really good brand fit and that's someone that people look up to in that specific space or activity or sport, then it feels like a win for us. And we think the payoff's going to be there. It's not right away, it's long term, but there's so many things you can utilize them for, whether it be, product testing or content shoots or PR or media events, or just the fact that someone sees them on social media tagging our stuff in a, not like, hey, go buy this right now, just that they wear it and they like it. We know there's a big long-term payout there if we continue to build these relationships. So it's definitely not like the direct response Facebook ad spend that a lot of brands are hoping for, but it's crucial, I think, in building a community as a brand.
It's different from a little bit from the micro influencer approach, I think, because
Correct.
and really that, if you look back to the surf industry for the past 30 years, this is kind of the approach that all of those brands had been taking before. They had a roster of athletes, they were utilizing them, and then that's how they became the core brands, the Quicksilver, the Billabongs, and stuff like that. They had, I think that surf is slightly unique in that way. And I think that it does to me seem like more of a long-term play and not something that you can directly correlate to, okay, we got, we 10x'd this ad because of this. In fact, maybe even just a non-Mark Healy ad might do better. But, in general, it seems to me that having someone who kind of lives and breathes it really represents like the evolution of where Free Fly is going. Do you guys, how do you think about how they tell the brand story? Are you kind of directing them to, hey, talk about Free Fly this way? Or is it more of, or is it kind of open-ended on how they talk about the brand?
Yeah, it's definitely more open-ended. We don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but when we go through like the dating interview process with an ambassador and just truly finding out what their needs are as an athlete or just what they like and dislike. Some people, prefer a specific style of clothing or, something that might not totally match us. And so we just listen to them as much as we can and get as many pieces of feedback or product testing or their likes, interest. And of course, we want someone that on social media or whatever that that hopefully would match some of the same brand language or the things that we like to talk about. But it's different today, I think, in that world, to use the surf example of what most brands are asking for from their athletes, probably in the previous years, where that whole industry was catering their product and their marketing to 18-year-old kids. And now there's this kind of grown-up evolution where the people with probably the most spending power are older, 35, 45, but still like that space. And so it makes sense to partner with a guy like Mark Healy that's now a dad and it's now not doing a bunch of huge competitions. It's more relatable. And hearing that from their mouth, I think is powerful when you look at the platform that they have right now.
So when you're crafting the product story for the website, are you utilizing their feedback to craft kind of the product description, for example, or how you're going to talk about it in a marketing way?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, we're working on going back to the surf thing, but these guys are the new guys are all in that surf space working on in the water collection right now. So it's really, really important for us to not only have them go wear the product and tell us what they like, dislike, or want to see more or less of, but hear their description of it or the little nuances that make a difference for them that comes right out of their own mouth, for us to be able to use that on a PDB page or a quote on an ad, because that's real. I mean, that is their honest feedback. And there's plenty of times where you get early prototypes and put it in these guys' hands and they're just like, I absolutely hate this, and here's why. And we listen to it. We go through 16, 18 prototypes before we bring anything to market. And it's not going to go to market until it's validated by one of those guys or gals.
Any products that you've had that were like that were just complete flops that you thought were going to be successes, but maybe had the opposite?
We're fortunate. We have such a long lead time with our products that if there's anything that got those kind of reviews, it was way before we brought them to market. And so we try to be really purposeful, bringing products to market that have gone through a lot of testing. Instead of having 50 different t-shirt options on our website, we want to bring the 4 or 5 greatest ones that are truly tested. Not to say we have brought products to market that haven't sold as much as we wanted and has had a lot of learnings because of it, but we try to learn from our mistakes as we go and get all of the feedback early on before anything does come to market.
How do you, as you guys grow, you started off the conversation saying you don't really like titles at the company. I imagine that as you grow and people kind of are growing within the company, there need to become titles. How do you kind of approach the makeup of your team, especially kind of the marketing team that you guys have in place?
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, our biggest thing, even in the interview process before, and someone comes to interview with us, is we always say, check your ego at the door. And so we try to do as good of a job as we can of saying that we're not obsessed with titles. We want more than experience, hire for attitude and aptitude, people that are young and hungry and that want to go learn and have a really good optimistic attitude about it. And so I don't think there's very many people that do care as much about their title on their LinkedIn profile that work for us, more so than just personal and career growth. You want to grow as a human being and an employee and make your way up the food chain. But we're pretty keen on making sure that before they are hired, that they're not going to be obsessed over, manager versus senior brand manager. We just want to make sure that we have a good team that covers all of the main functions of our marketing. We have it in kind of 2 separate categories: more the brand marketing, the GTM, go to market process and building out seasonal campaigns. Then we have the other side of it that's more on the content creation, photo, video, and go bring those big marketing campaigns to life. And so So I don't know if I answer your question, but people that just really truly are in this industry for the right reasons and want to grow, but not super title obsessed.
Yeah, at Cobble Hill, we have a similar mantra of checking the ego at the door and ensuring that people care more than just the titles. One, just by default because we're a small agency, but two, I think it's important to kind of leave room for their interpretation of where they can grow within the company and the type of where they do want to take their career, because there's only so many levels of senior leadership that we can create, and we're a pretty flat organization. Do you guys, I mean, I would imagine that you do a lot of kind of organizational and management training. How do you kind of separate that aspect from the fact that you are somewhat of a flat organization?
From the training side of things?
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to sit down with not just marketing, every different department, and do personal goal setting and understand what everyone's dreams and aspirations are, where they're at right now versus where they want to be. And it takes really good management, both middle, senior level management, director level. I think a team's only as good as their leader or their manager. And so it's investing the time and evaluating strengths and weaknesses and how we as a leadership team can help them get to the next level. I think people really care about that, of just being heard and not spoken to all the time, of what do you want? How can I help you get there? And it's a reflection. We, about 2 years ago, hired it was the three of us leading by committee, and we hired our first CEO, and it was a really interesting process. But we, the gal we landed on, her name's Sterling. She'd been running a really large, like over $1 billion company with 3,000 employees, and she is, from day one till now, the most humble person I've ever met in my life, and makes you feel like you're the most important person in a room. And so I think it's really important from the top down to have that mindset of you care about others more than yourself, but still investing the time and energy into people to help them grow and meet their career goals.
Yeah. How does that goal setting look like with employees and maybe even for yourself? Like, how are you setting goals? Are you setting goals on a quarterly basis? Are you setting them, on a yearly basis, 5-year basis? I personally find it hard to set goals that are too far out, but I also need to remember that there is I need something to keep me going. I need a North Star, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. We, especially with, we have 75 people in our office, and a lot of them are like young 20 somethings that still are trying to figure out their way in this world. And so as they enter the business and enter their role, annually is where we start. Anything past that's pretty hard for a lot of people to digest, including myself. And so we start with annually, and then we chunk it out into quarters of what are the things that we need to get done each quarter to meet those goals. And then at the year end, kind of have a look back review and postmortem and say, how did it go? What could I have done differently? What will I do better next time? And for us, it's been a good way to go about it.
What's an executive level meeting look like for a business like Free Fly? How do you are you guys meeting on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and what's the structure of that meeting look like?
Yeah, good question. It's weekly. We have I think about 8 people on our leadership team that we meet with, and for the most part, I mean, we quarterly we'll have board meetings, but when it comes to our weekly meetings, it's each department head giving an update of what's going on in the business or any challenges, and we try to be as collaborative as we can to help tackle those challenges and look at what let's go make sure that we're on track for our annual then quarterly goals. And if there's things that you're stuck to get there, we try to be a collaborative team and try to help with that process to overcome them. But it's a lot of listening and learning, and things change so quickly. I wouldn't say we're a digitally native brand, but it's such a digital age now of what's working today might not work tomorrow. So you have to be nimble and on our toes. And no matter how big we get, we always have that underdog mindset to try to say we're not too big to sit down and have a conversation of how we can quickly change something to improve it. So it's pretty loose structure to answer your question.
How do you guys kind of determine, a little bit on that? How do you determine what your sales goals should be? And more importantly, kind of like where I would imagine COVID was probably great for you guys in terms of just growing the business. And from a marketing spend aspect, how do you kind of, you might have a goal, but if you're seeing something that's just taking off, are you saying just keep spending on this until we lose efficiency, or are you setting kind of restrictions on a monthly basis on ad spend and just setting those revenue goals and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think COVID was a really good example of how you've got to be able to be nimble and pivot quickly of things that are working really well at that point and things that you need to maybe stop and put more energy and time and dollars into. We were fortunate at that point. We were one of the few outdoor clothing brands that maintained pretty good inventory levels through COVID. And so we were just focused on, at that point, to use a real life example, just getting product into our fulfillment center as quickly as we possibly can, even if we had to pay $1 extra per shirt, just knowing that we're air freighting as much as we can because the demand was there. And so it is, it's being flexible and just because maybe one sales channel or side of a business isn't meeting their annual goal that we start at the beginning of the year, but there's a horse we're riding in another sales channel or category. I think that goes back to just kind of putting your ego aside and say, I'm going to do what's best for the business at this point and keep driving it forward. And so that's the goal. It's not always easy. It can be really difficult as you're fighting for inventory with a couple different sales channels, but collectively as a group, if we can sit around a table and all feel good that we're doing what's best for the business, then we're going to do that.
Now, do you guys work with agencies for your ads and emails, or is that all kind of run in-house?
Yeah, we do work with agency for some of our ad spend on Meta and some of the Google platforms, but for all of our creative and catalog's been a big growth driver in our business. We have tried to build that in-house agency muscle of all creative inside our walls of building everything from the graphic design to the photo to the video as much as we possibly can. But when there's certain levels of really large marketing dollars that are complex that we want to trust experts with, we do that. We have a handful of agencies that we've worked with.
Yeah, and how do you guys kind of communicate your goals to those agencies, and how are you kind of staying fluid with a marketing agency who manages your ad spend? Do you guys bring them into every bit of the process, or is it more of just, hey, this is just the ad side of things and you guys just manage this?
Yeah, we try to, especially on the onboarding phase, I mean, someone that's going to be spending a lot of dollars for you that a lot of public is going to see. We try to do as good a job as we can of taking them through our full brand guide and who we are as a business and who our target customers are on the front end, and do a lot of that front end process early. And then it's just a matter of it's weekly check-ins of, like we've talked about earlier, what's working and what's not. How do we optimize the ones that aren't and turn on and off the ads? But it's a moving target. It really is. I'm shocked of what we used to spend so many dollars on, and 3 or 4 years ago, or even 2 years ago, probably, versus what's working today. Of two of our biggest channels right now are TV and catalog, and I would never have thought that a few years ago of seeing a TV commercial or getting a paper catalog in the mail. That is truly what's been a big business driver. So we continually weekly are checking in on all those things, and if we're not getting the ROAS on certain channels, we'll shut them off and try new ones.
Yeah, we encourage a lot of the brands that we work with who are scaling kind of rapidly to dip their toes into the catalog side of things, because at least for those few years post COVID, there's just huge opportunity there where they were just able to acquire new customers. Pretty, it's expensive, but in in actuality, it actually becomes a more kind of loyal customer, I think.
Yep. Oh, I agree. Yeah, it's in today's day and age, it's a lot easier to send a marketing email to your junk box than to have a really nice, pretty catalog that has some cool storytelling in it and some opportunities to gain a new customer. It's hard to throw that in the trash because as a brand, we want to try to create these coffee table pieces that so many awesome brands have led the way on, and we have a long ways to go. But it's been fun to try these new marketing tactics and see what's worked, what doesn't. But if we can infuse the what I think is the funnest part about marketing of just storytelling and ambassador highlights and talking about these cool places we get to go, and then have the commerce side of it as well, it's a huge win as a brand.
Now, when you guys craft this, are you from an ad perspective, from a catalog perspective, are you thinking of things as a campaign as a whole, and then, kind of making sure that everything, including email and ads, is kind of following what you're talking about on the website and all this? Or is it more like, okay, it's okay to have some evergreen content here and there, and then have just this campaign that lives independently? Or does everything get updated at once?
Yeah, our business is it's cyclical. So, this time of year from April through July, we realized that, and we don't have a huge product line. So we've got to ride our best selling franchises, like our bamboo hoodies and our Breeze collections that are always evergreen. But when it comes to, we'll send through that time period, probably 3 or 4 different catalogs. We want to highlight seasonally relevant styles and stories when they hit homes to make sure that it feels like it's the right time to talk about those things. And then have our landing page on our website and our social and everything that follows match that. But we're fortunate that we don't have this gigantic product line that most brands do have to manage, to have to tell every single little product story within it. We have a pretty core line of business that we're trying to constantly create new bestsellers, but it's not as big as what most brands have to market and build catalogs and storytelling with. So we try to leverage seasonality and ambassadors and storytelling as much as we can. That feels like it's the right time of the year to do that.
How do you think about marketing toward? I would imagine that men were obviously the core demographic of the Free Fly, but you guys have women as well, and I'm sure that's growing and maybe even on par with the men at this point. But how do you think about storytelling, marketing to women as different than men? Is there a different approach that you take there?
Yeah, it's been one of our biggest challenges as a brand that started off in fly fishing and started off predominantly mostly men's products. And the comment I used to hear so much from friends' wives that would be like, my husband, he's obsessed with your products, but I'm not an angler, so I don't wear them. And I'm like, well, don't let that stop you. It's our job as a brand to speak to those people and speak to them in a way that they resonate with. And so that goes back to, finding the right, whether it's female ambassadors or finding the right activities that we're wearing our product in, that we shoot content for and market towards, and the right audiences. And so it's been a really fun one to tackle, of having a men's business, women's business, and our kids' business is picking up quite a bit too, to try to speak to the whole family. And we want to be one brand, but the way, the messaging and the tactics to speak to them individually it is difficult. And so it's something that we talk about a lot, of how we win and how do we become that 4-season national brand for everyone in your family. And that's one that is very difficult, but we're learning more each day to try to tackle it.
Yeah, the kids especially, I feel like it is something that's unique. We've had clients, in the fashion space that have a separate kids line that they've launched after, and it's kind of breaking the mold. And that, it works great because, new parents coming in need stuff like the design of everything. But I think that it's a bit of a different marketing approach, and thinking through that is obviously a challenge, but also kind of fun and rewarding. And then at you as a parent yourself, it gets you a little bit more excited in kind of the business. Is that kind of what keeps you kind of going and interested in the business these days?
Yeah, it's a fun time to be in the business right now, having young kids and building a brand that was based off my personal needs when I was a 20-something single guy that didn't really have a care in the world except trying to catch fish and be comfortable outside, to raising kids and trying to scale a business. And to a certain point in the early days were easier because it's like one specific market, one specific target audience. I am the customer. To today, we have a lot of different customers in a lot of different places around the world, and age, race, gender, whatever it is, like we've got to know how to speak to them in the appropriate way. And so but there's also this huge opportunity. There's not many outdoor brands that have a really good men's, women's, and kids business. I think I'll count on one hand that there just isn't that many out there. And so it does drive me, and it gets me excited beyond just the selling t-shirts as a living, just trying to pass on what it means to have a balance in life to my own kids and practice what you preach and get outside and get off the tablets and have fun. And so it's a big personal thing for me as well of trying to build something bigger than just selling bamboo shirts.
Well, I mean, that's what makes a great brand. And I've had, a couple different people on this podcast who have said, okay, I've asked what makes a great brand, and literally 2 or 3 people have said it's the founder's passion, and that you can see the founder's passion. Even if the founder is gone, no longer with it, it still resonates within the brand itself. And I think having something, especially as you grow older, you're able to, change, your lifestyle has changed, and you're able to kind of take your inspiration and your influences and then kind of incorporate them into something that you've created, that you have creative control over, with help from others, but then kind of steer the ship where that wants to go. And I think that's the hallmark of not only a great brand, but also a great leader and a great founder. And people respect that, and it resonates. And then it also resonates in the marketing approach that you take.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's huge, and I don't take all the credit for it. I think there's so many people in our organization that have done a great job of just carrying on that vision of not taking ourselves too seriously and having fun along the way, but still like, let's get after this business. But I think the thing I would add to it, I think it's the Simon Sinek quote of, authenticity happens when you believe everything that you say and do as a brand and as a person too. For me, if we're trying to market something or a activity or whatever it is that we personally don't believe in ourselves, then I don't think we're doing ourselves a justice, because you just kind of look like a poser. And so we have to look in the mirror and say, does this feel right for us or not? Is this something I would actually say or do, and be a human and have that human connection to our customers? And I think that's where the magic does happen of all the great brands out there, like you talked about Patagonia, and just good storytelling and having a great balance of being outside and raising kids. And I mean, Charleston's an amazing place. I grew up in Montana. So I've been super fortunate to have all these really cool places and people that have come into the world of free fly that have really helped shape this thing.
Well, yeah, I think it's important, to stay humble in what you're doing. And then, it kind of leads, you lead by example through that. I'd be remiss not to ask about, because I run Cobble Hill with my wife, and it's great. It's great to have a family business, but I'd be remiss not to ask you about running it. You run it free fly with your sister. I would imagine that has its benefits, but also probably there's some costs in that. Are there any kind of war stories that you'd be willing to share on the podcast?
Yeah, two things. I'm very fortunate. My sister and I see the world the same way. We have a very similar marketing brain of what we like and dislike, but there's also this guy who's her husband, who's also a partner in our business, who I call him the most patient man on planet Earth for having to deal with both of us. And whenever there's like a lockup of we just can't quite figure it out, he is the peacemaker that really helps us be able to sit around a table afterwards and have a beer and realize that there's bigger problems in the world than what we're dealing with. And so, there's plenty of hang-ups or blow-ups along the way, but we grew up in that business and we still had to sit around a table with our parents after they had really long, stressful days. And they had like 150 employees, which I can't even imagine. And so I think it's just perspective, and it's having a really good, greater leadership team that helps keep you humble and helps, not let you insert all of your own opinions and get a good sounding board. And so, family businesses are unique and interesting, but I wouldn't have any other way.
You have any kind of frameworks that you live by, or there, you have a lot of influences. Do you wake up every day and kind of live through a similar type of framework? Or are you like, okay, now that I have kids, this is where the day is going to take me. Let's check my email, see where the business is going today. Are there operating principles that you kind of approach life with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's, for me, it's evolved, because it used to just be without kids, as you probably can relate. That's just like, wake up, grab a quick cup of coffee or food, and then just go work. And 13 years into this, my wife and my kids are my biggest priority. And I'm fortunate to have a great CEO and leadership team that if I am, whether gone on vacation or at my kids' dance recital, that things aren't going to fall through the cracks. But there are some framework, and we've used, there's a book called Traction. There's an EOS. It's called a framework that's really helpful for us in the early years and still today to manage our business, looking at 3 to 5 years and chunking out into annually and then quarterly. And they use what's called rocks of like, what are those big things that you need to tackle and challenge yourself with every single quarter. And so that's been a big one for me. But goal setting in general, of just trying to stay accountable to the things that I'm owning or my team's owning, and checking in along the way, and just being a human, of just knowing that you're never too busy to get a cup of coffee with someone that really needs it at Free Fly, and trying to just be human and be a good leader, and not put yourself on a pedestal or think your idea is the most important. So I think kids have really helped me a lot with the humility side of things, of just knowing what's important and what's not. But a work in progress.
Yes, we all are, for sure.
Yeah.
Tanner, it's been awesome to connect with you, kind of learn about your story, learn about Free Fly's story. Where can people, if they want to find out more, where can they find out more?
Yeah. freeflyapparel.com is our website, and on social at Free Fly Apparel. And I think we have 1,500 or 2,000 doors, retailers around the country. So probably most of your local outdoor shops. Cross your fingers if you're listening to this, carry it in your local community. But that's where we're at, and we're based here in Charleston. So there's plenty of brand presence here in the Southeast, and continuing to grow westward. And that's where you'll find us today.
Cool, man. I'd love to go fishing sometime soon. That would be great.
Likewise. Yeah. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man.